Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Born Primitive Outdoor Podcast. I've got Father Stephen Gadberry on the podcast today. We've talked before on podcasts. Appreciate you coming on. Excited about this one.
Yeah, and thanks a lot, man. I'm excited for the new show that you're doing. All this over Born Primitive. Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. A lot of changes in my life, recently, and I definitely. The support I've gotten from it is pretty amazing. And then obviously people, anytime there's any changes in your life or whatever, like people also, worry like something wrong. And then, people concoct up stories and everything else that goes along on the internet. But yeah, no, it's been good. I'm excited. The crew over at BP's, just a great, great group of people all the way around. And they're motivating people, which is always good. So yeah, it's been good. But what about you? I haven't talked to you in a while. What's going on in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, doing good. I'm still kind of rock and rolling here in Little Rock, Southwest Little Rock. It's a blue collar area of Little Rock. The church here it's exploding. We got around 10,000 people in the church, and we got a school. The school's doing really well. So that's kind of like my day job, you could say. I'm a Catholic priest, so doing all kinds of ministry stuff. And then, of course, just trying to hunt whenever I can, and which has been a little bit tough. I went full trad this year, which is kind of cool. Haven't used a compound bow yet. And also got into making knives, so that's kind of what's on my radar.
Gotcha. So with, I guess so everybody knows, like I said, Father Stephen Gadberry kind of tells the tale. But for those who haven't listened to any other podcasts, let everybody know kind of what you do and your story real quick.
Yeah. So I'm from Arkansas, grew up in the Delta, and went to, after high school, went to the military for a little bit. I was in the Air Force. That took me to, Texas and Germany, Iraq in the early 2000s. That was, pretty fun. While I was there, I kind of, you could say, got a calling for ministry, and so then went to seminary. And that was an 8-year process, studied philosophy and theology down in Louisiana and also in Rome. I was in Rome, Italy for 4 years, pretty much on the Vatican, like on the Vatican properties, which is kind of cool. And then 2016, I was ordained a Catholic priest, and I've been in Arkansas the whole time doing, Catholic priest stuff, so all sorts of ministry. And then so it's kind of like a broad scope of life and hobbies. I'm just grew up on a farm, so outdoors have always been important to me. Hard work. I just love work. I mean, you could tell me to dig a hole and fill it back up, and I would have fun doing that. And so hunting, dogs. I love dogs, and I just love life, man. Kind of I burn my candle at both ends. That's it. Kind of in a nutshell.
Gotcha. So with a lot of the feedback and things that I've gotten over the years with the podcast, everybody's evolving as a human. You're always, whether that be, fitness or business or, mental health or self-improvement, what do you want to call it? One of my biggest surprises was the podcast we do on, one, human performance, but two, mental health. That has been one that was a big surprise for me. It's certainly hard for men to, well, all the men I know, to discuss if they ever have problems, right? It's not an easy thing, and finding, peace or your place of peace, happiness, kind of getting around demons. And we had talked a little bit about that, but, before. Recently, I finally went to church twice now. You'd be proud of me. And that, wow. I know that it almost was as big of a deal as me leaving Faro. And, the big question is, why did you go? And, before I go into that, I mean, when you see people kind of changing, when I say changing, when you see people maybe trying to find their faith or re-find it, I mean, when you're dealing with that and people have questions or people have things going on in their life that they're looking to find their faith or go to church, maybe not for the specific reason to, to find, let's say, God, but to
Mhm.
find peace in the hopes that that happens at the church. I'm probably not doing a great job explaining that, but what do you tell people? Like, what are the things like to encourage them, and what to look for, as they're kind of getting into finding their faith and happiness and peace?
Cool, man. That's a good question. That's pretty loaded, dude. There's a lot of real estate to cover there.
It's a big
Man,
ball of
in
snakes,
short,
yeah.
Pope Benedict, he's the Pope before the one we have now, before Pope Francis. He died last year, was, through the early 2000s was the Pope. He had a line, he said, one of his talks, he said, you were not made for comfort, you're made for greatness. And, it's kind of cool. It's kind of motivational. But if you did that, like, if you unpack that, like, that's kind of at the heart of humanity. And we're all restless. St. Augustine, like, I'm not a bunch of quotes or whatever, but St. Augustine or St. Augustine, he had a line in his biography, or his autobiography, says, our heart is restless until it rests in you, oh God. And so, I use those two things to say, like, we're made for greatness, like, we're made for so much more. And what we realize every day of life is like, man, I'm not like as happy as I want to be, or as happy as I possibly could be. Like, there's always a little bit more, just like an addict. And, you just need like one more hit, one more drink, whatever it is. And like, or whatever, one more look, whatever it could be. Like, part of that is like how we're wired. We're made for so much more. And so that just goes on and on and on, but it can't go on forever. There has to be something that is enough, because in the philosophical terms, like, you just can't go on, chasing your tail for your whole life. There's got to be something to it. And so, faith and religion and spiritualities and all this stuff, all that comes into play. And all of us just had this cooped up energy within us, like this desire for more, which is a good thing. That's what makes us get out of bed. That's what makes us do everything. We got this cooped up energy. That's kind of like our spirituality. Like, that's the energy that's within us. And then, like, religion would be like those guiding principles of how we let that energy just like reach its max potential. Now that can create it can do, it like F's with your brain, man. I don't know if the priest could say like really strong cuss words or but like, it screws with you, man. Just F's with the brain, and it can lead to despair and confusion. And you're back to the starting point of that. What you were asking was like, what? It can be hard for dudes to say, like, man, I don't know what the hell's going on, because we want to have it figured out. And then that just creates a whole cycle of all these other things. Man, I just kind of brushed over quickly those different points that you asked about or that you mentioned. We can dive into any of those more that you want, but like, at the heart of all of us, like, we want more, and we're striving every day to find that deeper peace, greater joy. And it's just a continual process of crash and burn, push the limits, find where your weaknesses are, like, learn, like where the fence is on the pasture, and jump it and go to the next horizon. So that can be exhausting, but it's also extremely exciting. So it's the crossroads of that tension. So, yeah, I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, no, it did. And I'll kind of add to it. And one of the things, like, that seems to help people is when, others, like myself, or Derek Wolf was really good about this, kind of opening up to issues he's had, is, talking about, the different portions of this and things that, like, I've faced, or you, or whoever else. So, like, in the case, when I'm in British Columbia, for example, I'm very disconnected. I mean, I have Wi-Fi when the generator's on, but I'm on the mountain most of the time, and I sleep better, a lot better, like, 7, 8 hours a night, which is unheard of for me. And I'm generally just happy. And so, does that mean I have to go live under a rock to be happy? No, I mean, that really, what that means is I'm in my place of peace with no external issues, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? I'm disconnecting. And that there's a lot to be said for that, about being, tuned into social media too much, or whatever. The hate that you read, I say hate, like, there's a lot of negative stuff with the current political climate or the Karens. You know what I mean? There's a lot that are clickbaity things that you can just go down this wormhole where, truly, like, you have to make a living, whatever that living may be,
Mhm.
and finding that place of peace that what you need. And for me specifically, like, I really just kind of want to live in the woods and help people, right? Like when I said teach people things or whatever. And so,
Mhm.
where people are like, why did you go to church? I mean, there was many different reasons. One was just people around me talking to me about it. You being one of them, Jay Valaton, and then Maria and Ron. They own the place where I was working at in BC, and then my doctor, Dr. Drew, and Lance Banning and Kurt Gamashay, guys that were very like minded. That were like, look, dude, you have faith. You can't be the person you are, or giving, or whatever. Like, it was like, but you need to find it. Like, you need to find what is going to make you whole again. I guess that's not a great
Mhm.
way to explain it. So for me, like, did I go to church to understand the Bible? Yeah, I've read it a lot, right? I listen to it's hard to understand. I'm just,
Yeah.
especially if it's not broken down like the Bible for dummies, right? Like, there's a lot there. So
Yeah.
for me, it wasn't that. It wasn't like I was going to, or it was not to go to maybe understand what's wrong with man. Yeah, that wasn't it. For me, it was just to go to a place because when you go, and I've only been twice, but like what I'm seeing is like, each time there's a specific sermon that is given that has a
Mhm.
theme to it.
Yeah.
Whatever that theme is may not coincide with whatever I'm thinking, but it definitely, I need to get to a place where I'm not seeking acts of violence, right? Like, when I say that, I'm not like going around beating everybody up, but I'm really able to have a more of a stoic, I guess you could say, not let things bother me, and just
Yeah.
focus on me and helping people around me, and
Yeah.
having peace with whatever things are going on in life. And there's a lot of people that I know that have those same issues, where maybe they're worried about whatever is going on in the world. They're worried about somebody bashing them. They're worried about whatever. And you should, for me, going to church was part of that, was helping find maybe peace in my mind and not being frustrated about things that are out of my control. And that
Yeah.
really doesn't have that much to do with the Bible as a whole for me. That's just part of getting there. And that was a horrible way to explain that. But
No, that was great, man. It was, one of the beautiful things about faith, about religion is like, at its core, like the core of it is like, it's to help us take a step back. I mean, we get so caught up in the stuff that we're doing every damn day. And like religion is just like, and God helps us to put everything in perspective. And something I've learned just on a short life and, is like there's a lot of power and there's a lot of grace in just like continuing to show up and like give it your all, like give it your 100, bust your butt. It's going to work out. And that's something that's one of the little things I just keep telling myself, like, it's going to work. Hey, it's going to be okay, dude. It's going to be, it's going to be okay. Not like a cheerleader kind of thing to myself, but just like, just keep going. The pieces will fall in place. So like with the sermons, like, one weekend you may hear something, you're like, well, that didn't do nothing to me. Yeah. You're exactly right. It may not have, but like it planted a seed so that like 4 months from now or 3 years from now, like something will happen and like that'll click and resonate. Um, and so you talk about going to the mountains and having that peace and that's what like our relationship with God, is it's really entering into that solitude, entering into that peace, away from all the other distractions and everything. And when we can live from that, that's when we can go into the world with like this great faith, because we're living out of the center, out of God, and not out of all these other voices around us. Your first episode with Cam, it was great. It's always I've never met him, but we got a bunch of mutual friends, and I'm just really he's just kind of a cool dude, inspiring guy, and like I think one of the things he's pointed out a bunch of times is like everybody's got a microphone now, and a lot of people don't need one.
yeah,
So many people are talking or have their comments as if they're like they're professionals. But So separating those voices and taking a step back helps us do that. You know, at church, like, yeah, you know, you got the Bible, that's part of it, but that's not the scriptures. The Bible actually came out of the community. The Bible did not make the community. That's you know, a lot of people think like, oh, well, the Bible came first, and then out of that came the community. Well, no, if you read through it, like the historical text of it, the Old Testament, the New Testament, those are the retelling of the stories of the community, people that God called on that journey. You know, the Israelites through the Promised Land, and then the 12 apostles through the, you know, to follow Him to the cross. So living this experience is a kind of an invitation there, and you got to step back and keep it in perspective. So that's yeah. So there's a lot of parallels, and that's the last point I'll make. That's a lot of parallels between church and going to mountains.
Well, yeah, and I think that you know, there's so much like unraveling of all this, especially when you add in church or the Bible, and like, yeah, you know, there was definitely it was, and I say comical, like I had, you know, I appreciate the following that I have, and they're very supportive, and you know, there was definitely people from different denominations kind of jockeying for a position of what church I should go to, right? Or whatever, which, and which I thought was great. Right. And the bottom line for me though, is really, going, whether that have been to a non-denominational Christian church, Catholic church, a Mormon church or whatever, I really wasn't there to like, you know, stab the flag in the ground. You know, it was more of like, okay, I need to find and I keep saying a place of peace, but I would, that would be in the mountains for me. But I need to get to a place where there is I have forgiveness for what people have done or I've perceived have done that maybe have wronged me, that I can do nothing about. Find forgiveness to them, right? Move forward, and in the end, find a higher level of happiness. And I mean, is church going to do that? I don't know, but it can't hurt, right? It's not a bad thing. So, you know, the other thing too is when you look at, and there's some funny, like, I'm trying to be as politically correct on this, but comedians that will talk about one side of this, like the negativity of maybe like atheists or whatever. And then you can go talk to someone down south that is very, when I say south, in the southern region of the United States, of like, oh, you know, my aunt fell off the trailer because whatever, and her, you know, uncle had some hussy cheat on what, and then it like, but I'm good. I'm happy. Yeah, heading to church. You know, I love Jesus, whatever, and always happy. Well, you know, those can be made jokes, but in the end, like what I've seen, right, when people have that faith that is so ingrained in them that God has a plan, and they are free and clear. Whatever that plan is, it's in God's hands, and they're going to be okay. And I'm not saying I'm at that point at all, but I am saying that when you find a very devout Christian, somebody with faith to the core, they don't worry about a whole lot, right? And if they do, they hide it really well, because that's the thing. That's God has a plan. What that plan is, I have no idea. But they say that a lot, right? That's like the motto.
Yeah. Well, that's the faith part. I mean, what's that plan? I don't know, but I know how it ends. I know that God is king. I know that, like, if I'm faithful, like, to the end, like, the reward will be great. How the hell are we going to get there? Beats me. And it's probably going to be a bumpy ride because I'm a knucklehead, but I'm going to keep showing up. And that's the story of, that's what it's about. I hear you on, you know, putting the flag down, or, you know, everyone wanting to, you know, rally the troops or whatever. I mean, you know, like, just using the hunting images, you can take an animal down with all kind of arrow builds or a ton of different, you know, caliber bullets. And you put it in the right spot, it's going to do the work. And same thing with religion. You know, like, you know, for someone like in your situation and context, like, just you know, just ride it out and look at the fruits. Judge it by the fruits. That's the big thing. Like, judging it by the fruit. You mentioned the comedians and stuff, and one of the things that they do is they kind of call out the obvious. And life is brutal. And one of the things about Christianity is like something in the center of it is cross, and it can be easy to take it to extremes. Like it's not just the cross, but also it's not only like warm fuzzy public games. It's the both and. It's the tension between the cross and the resurrection. That's where we're living. So if you take like Good Friday, when we celebrate or remember Jesus being crucified, and then Easter Sunday and rising from the dead, there was that day between Saturday when, man, the disciples, they didn't know what the hell was going on. They were like, man, he made the promise. He said he was going to rise from the dead, but it's not looking too good right now. The guy's in the tomb. He's dead. And they're wondering, is this a hoax? What's going on? It's that tension. But they persevered till Easter Sunday. Sunday morning, they go to the tomb. And well, he's risen. Holy crap. What's going on? He did it. And just living in that tension. And, yeah.
Well, so, I mean, I'm new to this, right? So I'm amazed at the amount of people that got a hold of me was overwhelming, which was all good, right? Anytime I do anything or whatever, obviously I'm sure there's people talking crap that I went and I did it because of this or that or whatever, but those are the things that you kind of have to overlook, because the reality is one of the reasons that when I tell a story, right, of what I'm doing, in the end, I'm doing it to help other people, right? Like part of it's gonna, if I do it, is to relate, right? Like it's good to hear other people tell me what's going on with them, and you can bounce stuff back and forth with each other or whatever, like helping, your fellow man, pretty simple stuff. So the one thing that like the sermon, I don't know, they started talking about Halloween and being careful what your kids dress as, because it's demonic and it's dark. And they kind of lost me there, because I was like, I don't really give a shit about this, and this is not why I'm here. For me, it's like, I don't really, my daughter's 23 now, great kid. I'm sure she dressed up as a ghost at one point in time and didn't care, right? Like it now, if I was going to the church for the last 20 years, maybe that would have been like, yeah, that's bad, that Halloween is demonic. But for me, I'm like, yeah, not my pig, not my farm, not worried about that. But the rest of the sermon, right, I'm listening to parts and pieces. And when you can take, for somebody to open up the Bible, if they have problems, they can probably point to a passage somewhere in there and concoct that God has a plan from this passage. I'm not there, right? I can't hardly understand half of it to put it in context, because it's confusing. But in the end, I'm really there because there are parts and pieces, when they're explained and you start to learn it, that will shed light to, and help you find happiness. It's just one of those things to where if you dive in the weeds too much, you're not going to get out of it what I feel that you should. Meaning, I'm not going to fight over Mormons are great or suck, or Catholic priests are horrible. I mean, I don't care, right? I don't give a shit, right? I'm there for a totally different reason. And so the people that had reached out that were like, I've been praying for you for years. Yeah, I'm glad like Christ is king. And then I had other people of like, man, maybe I should go. It's like, yeah, dude, give it a whirl. Can't hurt. The one thing though is funny when you're somebody who, this isn't really that funny, but when somebody initially says, I've been praying for you, if you're not a man that has gone to church, that can be originally taken, or that can initially be taken like, what do you mean you've been praying for me? I'm not that fucked up. Like, what? But what they're basically saying is they've been praying for me to find faith, or, you know what I mean? Like, and so it was funny because the first few times I'm like, what, am I that bad? You been praying that long?
Yeah, it's man. You said a couple times, like, you just want to help people, and that's one of our big calls. I mean, love your neighbor, and that's hard, man. That's the difference between mere philanthropy and like Christian love is like for philanthropy, like you pick and choose the people you want to love, the people you want to help, the people you want to give favors to. But Christianity is like our Lord calls us to that next level, saying, this bastard, he burned me bad. We may never be best friends again. We don't have to hang out every night and play Monopoly together or Yahtzee or whatever, and go to the zoo with our kids. Like, we probably won't get to that level of friendship, but at least in the depth of my soul, I don't want him to jump off a bridge right now. Now, if he gets a flat tire, that's okay, but like, there's more to life than this thing that happened or whatever he did or, whatever. And it's that, again, going back to the thing I was just mentioning and both of us were talking about, but like this peace, this being able to step back and get the bigger picture and understand that this little piece that just upended me, that turned my life around, that, turned it upside down in a bad way or a good way. Like, in the moment, that seemed like the biggest and the most important thing. But a few days later, a few weeks later, years later, I can see that was simply a small piece in the bigger puzzle. The Bible, you mentioned the Bible a little bit. Like, it's confusing, man. I spent like 8 years. I mean, it's essentially like a medical doctor. It's like we spent a lot of time in school, like really high level education. And there's part of it is still mysterious because it's the Word of God. And so instead of understanding the Bible just like as one novel, think of it like a library. And in a library you go and you've got, this is from a dear friend of mine, Bishop Robert Barron, and he always uses this analogy. You go into a library, you've got the history section, you've got poetry, you've got novels, you've got fiction, you've got all these different genres. And as a whole, the library tells the story of humanity through all these different kinds of things. The Bible is pretty much that. So it's like, yeah, some little things. Is it full of contradictions? Yeah. Because it's not meant to like defend it, like fight against itself. Like there's going to be differences if you take it like word for word or things like that. You got to step back and get it at the story of salvation. And what is that? God made us. God is calling us to Himself. God is faithful to that call. Just like a parent trying to teach their kid to walk. What if the kid is crawling and they, like your daughter, she steps up and, tries to take her first step and then she falls. You don't say, "You moron, what the hell are you thinking?" Like you go up, and you're like, "Hey, come on, sweetie, let's go pick up. Let's go. You can do it." Like you're inviting her on. And like, that's what God is with us, and God is faithful to that despite our infidelity. It just captures that story. And, that's the journey you're just starting. It's wild.
Yeah. And when you brought this up a second ago, and I, I have a friend who, I won't mention his name, but has been very helpful to me, throughout the years, and definitely had urged me to find my faith again. He knew what happened, why I lost it. And then also, kind of tackling some of the issues is, and one of the things he brought up is you need to get to a point to where someone's done you wrong, you've done someone wrong, however that works, a mutual, like you need to be able to, at the core level say, "Hey, I forgive you for what you've done, and I apologize, and I would ask for your forgiveness of anything I've done wrong." To find like mutual ground and peace, so there's nothing hanging between you. And I've talked about this before, not in a faith or Christian perspective, but meaning getting your shit together before you head out on a backpack hunt, so you don't have things grinding on your mind. And so he's like, talking with that, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm good with, for the most part, everybody, whatever, and he's like, no, like sometimes that's what. And he's telling me this also to tell my followers, right? Like this, to helping others. He's not in a position that he really wants to do that, but he's a very, like yourself, very wise man, very experienced, and he's very methodical in his thought processes, I guess is what we would say. And when he was talking about this, he's like, if someone's telling you that they're ready to commit suicide, and I get that fairly more frequently than I would like on social, he's like, what do you tell them? And I'm like, well, I mean, initially I was telling him not to do it. What's going on? Like, hey, call me when you need, whatever, that kind of stuff. And he's like, well, what about the root of it? And I'm like, well, yeah, man, I'm not a shrink, right? I mean, I try to help, but he's like, well, find what that may be. And that may be someone has wronged them, that they can't, it may be a wife cheated on them. It may be whatever. And we'll use, let's say a wife cheating on you. That's very difficult for some people to take, especially if that relationship was important to him or her, and obviously wasn't as important. Is he needs to get to a place of peace to forgive that person, and not only forgive them, make sure that he understands where they were at, and come to a full circle on that, so he can walk away, maybe not whole, but working their way to being whole.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. That's a wise friend. And forgiveness, just a little thing I want to say on that is like, it's so often like it's painted in pop culture, or even, some popular religion of the last, 40 years or so, since the 60s, like 70s. It's just like this whole peace and love kind of forgiveness. Like, let's forgive and it's all going to be okay. Like, bullshit. Like, I'll forgive you, but I'm going to have a scar here. And, understanding that we can go through the forgiveness thing, but that doesn't mean doesn't mean we have to be best friends. And that's okay. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, that's okay. That's okay. But it messes with the brain, messes with the mind, and which then, like you just mentioned, suicide, man, you can get some dark thoughts, some really deep stuff. Some of the hardest times of my life are actually, like you mentioned, going out into the backcountry, because that gives you time just to like process and think stuff and find peace. Some things you got to take care of before you get out there, so it doesn't screw up your whole trip. But my drives out west every fall, like the drive out, like the first 5 hours are just rocking. It's good. Adrenaline is pumping, everything, probably like 7 cups of coffee, and just, I'm ready to go. I'm waiting, 8 months on the hunt. And then like the sun starts setting on the first day driving out. And then it's just like, shit, like all these dark thoughts come, and I'm just processing all this stuff that I've been repressing and suppressing for the last month. And a lot of times, to bring back to the point you're saying, I was like, a lot of times those are issues that are dealing with like other people's humanity and how it hurt my humanity, or vice versa, ways that I was an ass to people. And I'm like, man, I've been a jerk to my mom for the last 6 months, for whatever. But we're fragile people, man.
Yeah, and again, men are the worst, with this. And we, when I say that, like, as we have this podcast and this gets sent out to the world, this is, and again, I'm not trying to make it a men's only club here, but obviously mostly men listen to the podcast. But women, if you're out there and same issues, I mean, it whatever. So as there's going to be people that'll listen to this podcast, and they're going to immediately say something negative about you or me or what we're talking about, or concoct a story up of why we're having this or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of person probably, hopefully, at some point finds their own peace, right? Like, there's probably something going on in their own world, right? Like, and I've definitely come to find that to be, true. And it's like, am I going to help that person? Probably not, right? But maybe it'll click one day, and it's trying to click with me and other people that I've talked to or helping. And when I say that, meaning, okay, like, if you take anything from what we're rambling on about, is like, where are you at mentally? Do you have demons? How do you fix those demons? And like I said, with men not kind of opening up, is finding actually kind of an outlet, whether that be one person or you go to church or whatever, to find, again, peace, resolution, forgiveness, so you are making yourself whole throughout the day. Because, I mean, you meet, like, I don't, have you ever, somebody into Buddhism, which is a little hard for me to wrap my head around, but whether they're faking it or not, they're pretty damn happy, right? I mean, and so whatever that gets to that point, people that live, let's say, off the grid, most people, whatever their religion is, doesn't matter. Like, you find somebody that has no power or very little power, and they're just happy to be doing what they do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they found it, whatever that was, right? And are you an entrepreneur? Are you a venture capitalist? Are you somebody just working construction trying to pay your bills? If you're not happy, what is going to get you happy? If you're having suicidal thoughts, why are those there? What can fix that? And men are horrible about opening up. It's bad. And so I'm trying to get better about doing it myself in hopes that others, because if I called you tomorrow, I'm like, dude, I'm struggling. Like, and I'll dump right here. It's like a pack dump. 17 minutes later, you're like, wait, man, there was too many problems. I couldn't keep up. Can you list number? Like, that's bad, right? That means I have not, did the pack dump of my brain in a while. And sometimes it just seems like when you can get men to do that specifically, at least they can start on the road to recovery. And I will say, like, alcohol, I went 20 years without drinking. And then there for 3 or 4, I was drinking a ton. And then I've quit in the last few months. Alcohol is the devil. They talk about wine in the Bible. I'm not talking about in moderation, right? Like, heavy alcohol is not good. And I mean, I can tell you that firsthand, like, recovering fat kid. I can talk about, living a healthy life. Like, while it's fun when you're drinking, like, I'm the smartest man alive, it's the greatest night of my life. The next day, that is not true. And it seems like by that next evening, you forget what happened that morning. And then you're like off again. And again, it leads to nothing good. And that's another problem I found with people that I'm communicating with, is alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we like to latch on to stuff like booze, for example. Like I totally get that. Like, I'm a priest, fan of the cloth, but my stop button is broken. So I totally understand. Like, it can be easy. Just like I can work that stuff, man. And then, like, the next day I'm like, damn it, Stephen, what the hell were you thinking? Like, and then you got the brain fog and everything. But then by the evening, you're like, all right. No, dumbass, you can't control it. Stop.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like, I'm not saying if I was capable of this, which I'm totally not, which is why I just can't drink, of, head down to Scotty's on Saturday, haven't seen him in a while, we start drinking some whiskey, fun, ha ha ha, everything's great. I don't really care about it. That's not a big deal. It's the fact that, Sunday, then Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, we rinse and repeat, and it's the same thing. That is the problem. Like, occasionally, not a big deal, but the problem is, if you're already suffering from something and you're drinking, it's not good.
Yeah. And you could put anything in there, we're using booze for this example because it's a very concrete thing that a lot of people in the world are aware of. A lot of people struggle with it, or at least they are firsthand know someone else that does. But I mean, look at social media. That's the new cocaine. Drugs or shopping, or there's so many different things that we're addicted to. And why do we do it? Like, we want the peace, and if we can't find the peace, then we want to numb it somehow or forget it somehow. And that's just the whole bunny hole of what we were talking about earlier. Of, like, where do I get this peace? Like, why am I chasing my tail all day?
Yeah. No, that's true. I would say, and I didn't even think about that, but the social, media aspect of it, or even, I hate to say the news, but the news is not probably news anymore. So, like, the negativity, whatever that is, or and the thing with social media, if you're on there just occasionally to make a post and you're, whatever, like, for moderation, it's when you start altering your life because of what you're looking at on a screen is pretty bad. And the problem with social media, I mean, there's many problems, but one is you're only seeing, like, the best sides of people, that if you're struggling, that can make you think that no one in life struggles but you. I mean, that seems to be one of the, the problems. And then just the negativity. Like, you can go on forever about Karens screaming at people and just evil things going on, and it just kind of rots your brain.
Yeah, it magnifies two things. Like, um, I don't want to use like big terms. Like one of them is called mimetic desire. The other is scapegoating. I'm sure you may have heard of some of those, at least scapegoating. But like, so the first mimetic desire is basically like you see what someone else has, and like basically by their desire, the desire that they have for the thing that they have makes you think that you need it. You know, like you're just kind of following the desires of other people. So like basically, you want to be on the same team as that person, or you want to crucify people, and that's scapegoating. You always have to find a victim. Who are we going to burn? Who's the one we're going to burn for this? Who's taking it? Because we got to blame it on somebody. And so there's those two extremes. Either it's all these camps, and you can say stuff on social media that you would never say in person. I mean, because one, you probably have enough sense not to say it, or two, you get your face punched in, and you can only do that so much in real life. Yeah. Social media, you can be a keyboard warrior. But that's the thing with like God is like he takes it on, and Jesus is like, yeah, all right, I'll take it, and I'm not going to punch you back. I'm not going to fight back. Like he breaks the cycle of violence, and like I'm not like a peace love kind of hippie guy, like anti-violence. So I'm not like saying that in a weird way, but I'm saying like, you can go tit for tat, until kingdom come. Like no one wins from that. It's exhausting and it's stressful. So whenever this ties into the element of forgiveness and reconciliation, but also just the story of life. Like, all right, I'm just going to let that one rest. Okay, you're right. I was an ass. I'm sorry. Like, what do you want me to do now? Like, just break the cycle instead of saying, yeah, I'm an ass, but you're a bigger ass. And like, no one wins.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you start flinging shit, everybody gets dirty. You know what I mean? There's no way. I mean, yeah. That's a fact. Obviously, like when you're through life or whatever, like you grow. Well, you hope anyway. You grow up, right? And when I say grow up, you should be growing up, and some of that is going to be you're going to mature financially, meaning you're better at paying bills and saving money, and you start making more money, and then you also, let's say, you become better at keeping the house clean and doing the dishes and normal mundane shit, right? So other things though is you're probably going to maybe have a little less piss and vinegar, and maybe the eye for an eye is not, it slows down, and it may not. I mean, for some people it may go forever, but there's definitely something to be said for like looking at something and be like, okay, how big of a deal was that? How much time has passed, and is it still weighing on my mind, your mind, or anyone's mind? And a lot of people I've talked to, they may tell me a story and I'm like, man, that was 8 years ago. And one of them specifically recently, the guy was talking about a hunting partner, and it ended a relationship. And I'm like, well, like, how close was the like, hold on, like you went on a hunt and it ended it totally? Like, you've never had that happen? I'm like, no, I mean, honestly, I've had kind of that happen. I mean, much longer form, but tell me the story. And, the guy always never had any money. And then when he finally had to pay, he was mad and he was lazy. I mean, it was just a crazy Gone with the Wind story. And I'm like, all right, well, what's up? Right? He's like, well, I kind of miss him. And I was like, well, has he ever reached out? And no, we hate each other. And I'm like, well, what do you miss? Yeah, I'm like, this is interesting. Now it's like people watching in Boulder. I'm like, so you never talked again, right? And I mean, this is years. And I'm like, why do you call him? I can't call him. And I'm like, I text him. That's kind of the weenie way out, right? Text. And he's like, what do you mean weenie way out? I'm like, well, if you're, afraid to call, text, right? And I'm like, I wouldn't show up to his house. And so, I don't know, a week went by and he's like, I called him. And I was like, yeah, what happened? And he's like, he's missed me too. I was like, oh, it's like the ambiguously gay duo. This is awesome. You guys missed each other. Like, what'd you talk about? Right. So, he's like, he's telling me like, hey, the guy basically found out he was kind of a dipshit, right? The dude on the other end, and he wanted forgiveness, but he was afraid to ask for it. He was embarrassed, whatever. And it was an interesting story, obviously, just because, one, it was like, I know people that lose hunting partners and friends every year from hunting, where somebody steals a spot or whatever else. And it's like, look, you may never hunt with that guy again, depending upon how much of a ding dong he was, but it's just hunting, right? It's Not that, but you know what I mean? Like maybe you're great friends on the basketball court, but you can never go hunting again or whatever. It's different. It's difficult for dudes to call. It just is. And that story specifically, I mean, literally, I would have had to screenshot my screen 74 times to actually even post that story. I mean, that's how long that story was. He was messaging me. It was interesting and cool. I mean, at the end, they started hanging out again.
It's kind of funny, and but in the moment, I'm sure it sucked for the guy. And like you were just saying, it's been 8 years. Well, just call the dude. I'm a little nervous. I can't. Okay, text him, man. Okay, but we make a mountain out of molehills, and time heals so much stuff, and it puts a lot of stuff in perspective too. But,
yeah. It definitely puts it into definitely puts it into perspective.
Yeah. And with that perspective comes clarity, and then you continually do that. And the better you get at understanding your past and everything you've been through, the better you can live in the present moment. The problem is we're not freaking aware. I don't know how many animals I've missed because my dumb ass is on my phone or picking my nose or sleeping or something in the stand. And you got to be aware if you want to get the animal, and you just get better over time hunting. Which sidebar, totally going traditional this year has made me a much, much, much better hunter. So the awareness thing is we're not aware, and time and reflection helps us to gain that awareness of the past, which makes us better, see the signs of us right now when we're living it.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, with obviously we're covered pretty much the same subject, somewhat with what we've talked about so far. When people are because you said you had 10,000 people going to the church.
Mm-hmm.
So just because I've recently, like I said, so people are wanting me to plant the flag right in the front yard of the church. So you're Catholic, right? And then anyway, I don't need to list the 75. I mean, there's a pile of different religions. When people are looking at going to, church, and you're probably going to be biased to that. What I mean, again, minus you don't have 100,000 followers to steer you in a direction of one or the other. If people are just brand new to this or just looking at, they went to church as a kid. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like there's pretty hard, I'd say Pentecostal, Catholicism, Catholics, it's pretty hardline religion. Lutherans, freewheeling, and then they all talk shit about each other. It seems, or I can say 100% they all talk shit about each other for my recent 2 weeks of going. What should, don't do this, whatever. What should people be looking for? It seems to me it's like a bow model. What do you need, right? I mean, what are you looking for? But again, I'm green as grass. What should people look for to pick which direction they should go if they're looking at going to a church?
Yeah, that's a good question. The simplest thing is look at the fruits. What are the fruits? If the people in the community are nice, are they charitable? Are they joyful? Are they talking shit about each other? How's the pastor preaching? If I don't do this in my church, and anytime I go to another church, another denomination, and I hear this, what I'm about to say, it's always a big flag for me. But if I go somewhere, someone's saying, all these other people are burning in hell. You've got to come here, and it's the only way. You're not the last Coca-Cola in the desert, buddy. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat. So if there's immediate condemning or bashing of other people, that's one thing. The fruits. Look at the fruits of the community. Does it just serve itself, or is it mission oriented? Do they only do things to build up their own little church, or are they actually doing something to help the homeless people down the street, not to facilitate their homelessness, but are you helping them to change their life and have some dignity? So you look at this is what I would say, some of the most basic things. What are the people like? What's kind of the vibe of the community? What's their mission? What are they doing to help work with Jesus Christ to save the world? And before you can talk the Bible with somebody, you got to give them something to eat. If our kids here at the school, if we can't teach them math if they didn't eat breakfast, they don't give a damn about math because they're hungry. Okay, give them something to eat, and then you can teach them. There's that element. Another thing, just in general, to keep in mind is like we go to church because of God, not because of other people. If you go because of other people, your heart's going to be broken. You'll give up in the first couple of months because you're going to meet other losers, and because that's what it all is. We're all a bunch of losers. I mean, we're all a bunch of sinners. I mean, but that's why God came. He came for the broken people. He didn't come for the good people. So if he came to fix and save the broken people, you better kind of be ready to meet a bunch of broken people in the community. And so understanding that, it's about God. It's about God. Is it the direction continually to God, or is it to the pastor, or to some other passing thing? But whatever. I'm blabbering, but I'd say look at the fruits. That's the simplest thing, and just remember that it's about God. It's not about other people. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of what I was cracking jokes about in the beginning is I went for it. I didn't go to plant the flag. I went, whatever. I went to, I guess I went to plant it or try to with God, not with a specific denomination.
Yeah.
And so the one thing, like the first service I went to, hopefully nobody from that church is listening to this, was a little rough, right? The speaker was not exactly, captivating. And I can tell you if he spoke all the time, I would not be going back, even though it's an amazing church, it really good people. But I mean, man, it just was rough. Like it was hard for me to focus, like, and even understand, it was just difficult. And he was a great guy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the person. But for me for my ADD to like stay between the mayo and the mustard, that was a rough one. Like the second guy who was the primary, speaker or whatever, but much easier for me to follow along with. So, I mean, whether that be, you go to a Pentecostal church, Catholic or a non-denominational, it seems like it's probably like anything. You need to have maybe friends that go there. You need to have a speaker that you are comfortable with. I mean, say what you want about Joe Osteen and stealing money from everyone or whatever the whole story. He does captivate the audience, right? And I don't know what your feelings are with him because I've read all kinds of crap about Joel, right? Like he's Maseratis and hiding money in the wall. I don't know the shit that went on there, how much, whatever, but he does captivate the audience, right? He's, and, so that's something for me that I looked at was like, can that person keep my attention? And it shouldn't be that way, but it definitely is with me, Yeah.
Well, that hits on a good point I didn't say earlier, but it was really good. You went the first time, you're like, man, I'd rather watch paint dry than listen to this guy talk. And the second guy was more captivating, had like a message that resonated with you. The point there is like, you went back. So for anyone that's starting this out, don't do it 2 or 3 times and say, this is stupid, I'm done. No, give it a shot, give it a chance to go back to hunting stuff, because pretty much everyone listening to this is, hunting. That's the whole the premise of the podcast and the brand and everything, or at least this armor is more primitive. It's like, I mean, when you get the bow, when you start shooting archery for the first time, whether it be compound or traditional, like you're not going to hit the bullseye. And like you just keep shooting, you tighten up your group, you move your group, like you dial it in. But you have to be willing to take a shot and miss the mark, make an adjustment, take another shot. That's such a beautiful way of understanding this life. So for the religion thing, church thing, go to a place, ride it for, give it a test run for 2 weeks, 2 months. Say, okay, I'm going to go for 8 weeks. Even if I hate it, I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to give it at least 8 weeks, and after that, we'll try something, because it takes time to see if you actually, see how it unfolds. Because it captures like the whole story of humanity. That's what I mentioned a couple of times. It takes a while to unfold. It takes a while to build the plot to get there. And the whole thing I just use the archery example. In the Bible, the word for sin, both the Hebrew and the Greek, is to miss the mark. And that's also the same word that was used for archery terms. If you miss the mark, chata, that's a word in Hebrew, but it doesn't matter. Like you've missed the bullseye, you've sinned, And so if you miss the bullseye, you don't say, well, damn it, I'm going to break my bow in half, or I'm going to beat the scope with a hammer.
Oh, you might.
You make a small adjustment. Yeah, I've been there before. But piece of shit. But you make a small adjustment, take another shot. If you went further from the bullseye, go the other way. Or if you get closer to the bullseye, you say, okay, good, I'm gonna follow it all in. But the consistency, commit to it, and follow through with it, and keep dialing it in.
So I'm going to add a little bit, to that. And when you were talking like the 2-month thing, or however long, right? I would, man, I really look at this like going to the gym for the first time. Like the first time you go, and certainly the first time I was awkward. Thankfully, I had people invite me. Aaron and Brad, friends I went to school with them in Oregon, good people. They were there, and I made the joke. I'm like, your job is just make sure I don't do anything stupid. Is that cool? So like when you first go to the gym, you're looking at like, big, like jacked up chicks and dudes, like they're using the machines. You're over there like, am I using this right? And who's watching me? And am I getting made fun of? Right. And the flow gets better. Right. So, I'm at church and I'm doing what you stand, pray, sing. I didn't sing. I suck at singing, but I hummed along. And then you have people in the front, amen, brother. Like they're into it. Like that's the big jacked up dude with 4 plates, like 4 wheels on each side. He's in it to win it. And, so it's like, I would say that's realistic, because I always tell people to go to the gym for at least a month. Like that's when it becomes a lifestyle. Like you're going to, what would you say? Like you're going to, it will be, I say a lifestyle. It is going to become second nature, going to the gym, and you enjoy it and you get peace from it. It seems church is kind of the same way, not to disparage church or compare it to the gym, but it does seem the same way for me.
There's so many crossovers. The analogies are endless between the two. You had Rich on a podcast with you, Froning. He and I are really good friends. We mayhem hunt. We got all that stuff going. Like he's a fit little turd, man. But one of the reasons he's so amazingly fit, first of all, he's just a genetic freak. But he's gone to he's talked to experts in all these different areas, and he's worked with a bunch of people throughout the years. And he didn't just have like one little thing that he specialized in, but he worked on a million different things. And the point I want to get at with that, or the connection there with the church stuff, is like when you got questions, like ask people who know what they're talking about, and not just one person knows what we're talking about, but multiple. And then the more comments and perspectives and answers you can get from people who actually know what they're talking about, the better picture you can paint of what's actually going on of reality. The more better you understand reality. Because if you got a God question, then you go to some random atheist on a Saturday afternoon in Seattle, and you're like, hey, I got a question about the Bible. I think you're a moron. So.
No, and I would say, and Rich, I think I would add to that of like working on different things is when you look at Rich Froning, he's not just good at push-ups or what, he can do everything. Obviously one of the greatest CrossFitters the world has ever seen. Mm-hmm. I'd say that kind of parallels to church too, because like when you're going, you probably need to work on a lot when you get there. You probably don't just want to work on one thing, right? If church was CrossFit, which it is for some people, you can't just work on rows, right? Or what a kip ups or whatever shit CrossFitters do. Like you probably should like look at working on a lot of stuff, because you probably you're more than most likely you're fairly fucked up, right? So you probably want to do a lot of different things.
Yeah. There's beauty in that kind of diversity. But the thing is, just back to the point we're making earlier, is just like, you got to keep showing up. And that consistency is, you're not going to lose all your weight first time you go to the gym, and you're not going to encounter eternal salvation with just one thing. Like it takes a whole life a relationship. And
yeah,
that's exhausting.
Yeah. No, that's very, very true. Well, cool. Well, man, we're about to hit an hour here. I mean, we've covered all kinds of different stuff. Is there anything, you want to touch on, but before we hop off?
Man, we cover a lot of terrain. Anyone can reach out to me on social medias or at the church or whatever. If they just look Stephen Gadberry, they'll find on my stuff. I'm on Instagram. It's just Father Stephen Joseph Gadberry. It's written there. But man, I guess the final thing would be kind of like a common thread through what we talked about today. Like just keep showing up. There's a lot of stuff in life that doesn't make a lick of sense. But if you could just continue to patiently persevere through it, be patient with yourself. Don't turn into a lazy little turd, but work. Do some work. Actually put some effort into it. But keep showing up, put some effort into it. Crash and burn. Learn from that. Miss the mark, miss the bullseye, dial it in, keep shooting. And if you just keep showing up, and giving it your all, the Lord, he makes it all possible. But that's true for us, and that's true for other people. So that affects our relationships with other people. And when stuff goes on with other people, recognizing, man, there's more to the story. Their story that I don't know, but also the story between us. In the future, we don't know how it's going to unfold and how this is going to affect us in the future, change the way we move forward and stuff. But there's always more. And God has made us for more. God has made us for himself. And so we're restless until we truly encounter him.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing to leave off on. So, man, I can't thank you enough for hopping on, and anybody listening to this, that is struggling, like I would say, reach out to me at any time. I don't know how much help I'll be. At the very least, I can tell you a funny joke. Maybe it'll pull you out of a hole or tell you, hey, I'm all fucked up too. But yeah, definitely call a buddy. Buddy checks are good. Girly, I don't know what you call for a girl check, but if you're female, check on your girlfriends. But certainly you don't know what's going on in someone's mind. So it is, have as much patience you can with people, and certainly reach out to your friends and make sure they're doing okay. And again, if you need to get a hold of me at any time, get a hold of me. So I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate everybody tuning in.
Yeah. Keep up the good work, Aaron.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.